Freeman, Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. 105.9 FM and AM 630. WMAL.
7:07 on the Morning Majority. We get to talk to Joe DiGenova, our friendly legal expert. How's it going, Joe? One of my favorite lawyers, by the way.
Hey, Joe.
Uh-oh. We do not have Joe. But what I will tell you about before we get to Joe is a new poll from Gallup, and I'm going to get this to Joe when we get him on the line, shows that, wait for it, 72% of Americans believe the individual mandate in the health care reform package by Obama is unconstitutional.
Wow.
Good group out
72. Hey, there you are.
Good morning.
Hey.
It always helps when we get the right buttons pushed. Hey, Joe, how are you?
Push that button.
So what do you think about this result from the Gallup poll? 72% of Americans believe the individual mandate in the health care reform package is unconstitutional.
Well, I think it demonstrates the generic American dislike of government, in some circumstances.
Right.
It's a powerful number, and the Supreme Court is not unmindful of these things. It doesn't change what they do, but it gets their attention, and it might make them think a little bit more about this. The individual mandate, obviously, the centerpiece of the administration's health care reform, quote-unquote. Without it, the entire bill fails because it's the source of the money and the financing, as well as the $500 billion they stole from Medicare to pay for health insurance for 37 million other Americans who didn't have it. It's a powerful number, and the court will look at it, think about it, obviously, but they're going to decide what they're going to decide on the merits. But believe me, having 72% of Americans not like something and then say that it's okay by the court, not a healthy thing to do in most circumstances.
Joe, this week in the world of politics, Republican presidential hopefuls were talking a lot about the issue of church and state. An important issue, I think we can all agree. Perhaps I would question the political wisdom of having that discussion right now when the preeminent story is really about the economy, and that's what ought to be focused on. But nonetheless, were they right in their interpretation of the church and state issue?
Well, here's the thing about Rick Santorum and the way that he formulated this question, and it's really quite remarkable. There was a way to answer the question that was asked of him, and what he did was he created a firestorm where none needed to exist. This is what I call the frightening ability to self-inflict wounds. He cites Kennedy, and I think he overreacted to what Kennedy said. He said he got sick or almost got sick when he read the original Kennedy statement about separation of church and state. What Santorum should have done was talked about Kennedy's inaugural address, which was a remarkable piece of pro-religious speech. He said in it, Kennedy said, "Our rights as citizens do not come from the government. They come from God." I mean, of all the things to demonstrate Kennedy's view that that religion has a role to play in American life, not to mention, for example, that we have chaplains in the House and the Senate, and that religious figures in America have played a major role in public policy during the civil rights movement, the anti-war movement. I think Santorum's problem is one of formulation and messaging, not necessarily the substance of his position. I disagree with the strenuous manner in which he described it, and obviously there's a place for religion in American society, and even a place for religion in government. Our government recognizes that. Our programs recognize it, as does our public policy. So I think Santorum's problem is he's really got strong feelings about things, which is fine, but, you're also running for election, means you're trying to get people to vote for you, for heaven's sakes.
Well, and there are sunny ways to put things, and there are less sunny ways to put things.
Yes, well, he does have a dour visage sometimes, notwithstanding the sweater vest. His problem is, I think I think there are some substantive problems, but on this one, I think this is a truly self-inflicted wound. There are ways to deflect things like this. I mean, look around us. Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, these guys have been in the middle of American politics for 30 years.
Right.
Nobody complains about that.
Certainly not. Tell us about same-sex marriage in Maryland headed for a referendum, I believe. Tell us about this next step, how things are going.
Well, the House and the Senate in Maryland have enacted the bill. It's gone to the governor. He's going to have a huge signing ceremony and make a big deal out of this. I think from the standpoint of Maryland voters, they are opposed to this. And I think there's going to be a referendum, and it will be probably defeated in the referendum. They will reject the legislation that the House of Delegates and the Maryland Senate have enacted into law, and then you're going to have federal litigation over this, just as you did in California, where the same process was followed, where you had legislation. You had the court ruling there that there was a right to gay marriage. Then you had the referendum saying that marriage was between a man and a woman. Then you had the federal litigation. The same path is going to be followed here, and it's going to all await the result of Proposition 8. So it will be interesting to see whether or not the gay marriage referendum, how fast they can get the signatures to get it on the ballot.
What is the bar like in Maryland? Is it fairly hard to get a referendum?
Yeah. My recollection, and it's been a long time because there haven't been many in Maryland, is that it's a relatively high bar. But in this instance, they are not going to have a problem because they're going to have basically all the black ministers. You remember the congregation captains that the president used for his African Americans for Obama. Those same African Americans for Obama are going to be used in this campaign to repeal gay marriage. And in the black community, among the churches, this is a question of morality. It has nothing to do with politics or civil rights. In fact, the black ministers they deeply resent the correlation that is made by liberals between civil rights and gay marriage. They do not believe that to their core. They're deeply offended by it. They do not believe in gay marriage, and they're going to fight this thing tooth and nail. And in Baltimore, it will be they will repeal this law just out of Baltimore.
All right, let me ask you, this PTSD has become a thing that is being applied in many, many, many cases now, and we're taking a new look at post-traumatic stress disorder.
Right.
You have a story that you're very interested in on this particular topic.
Well, there's a terrible case in the Western District of Virginia where a wonderful, sad story of a guy named Sean Duvall, a veteran who had a part-time job at Virginia Tech where they had that horrible, horrible massacre in 2007. He lost his part-time cooking job, got severely depressed, decided he was going to kill himself, so he put in his backpack a cell phone, a letter to his family, and an 8-inch pipe he had designed to shoot one bullet when you bang the pipe against the wall. He called a hotline, a veterans hotline, to say he was suicidal. They sent a police officer. He told the police officer he had this pipe. The police officer took it, arrested him for possession of a concealed weapon. Then the state dropped the case, and the U.S. attorney in the Western District of Maryland, a guy named Tim Heaphy, has decided to charge him with 4 10-year felonies.
Wow.
The guy has no record. He's a post-traumatic stress disorder vet, and this is one of the worst cases of prosecutorial overreaching I have ever seen, and I am absolutely hoping that somebody at Maine Justice is going to pick up the phone to this guy and say, hey, fella, just drop the case, get this guy into some sort of treatment, and just move on to something that's really important.
Wow.
People out there ought to really follow this case. This is a disgraceful abuse of prosecutorial discretion. The vet's name is Sean Duvall. And the U.S. attorney is this guy, Tim Heaphy, down in the Western District of Virginia. An awful case. And I would hope that members of Congress who have some influence would contact this guy and say, move on, do something worthwhile. I mean, what an incredible